when the ETF got approved in January, February, that was an enormous step. I mean, really, really, really enormous. And so that's allowed, everyday people to put some of their savings and their retirement in it. And it says that the government is recognized as a commodity, and they're not going to take it away from you, at least not now. I mean, maybe Team Blue would. But the second thing that happens is just enormous. The strategic Bitcoin reserve, for the government to admit that this is a form of money that they think is strategically important vis-a-vis other countries. Well, now you're talking about nation state FOMO. So, when they did that, that just sent a message to Russia, China, every other, nation out there. Hang on a second. Is it possible that this will be the reset, that we'll reset to this and not gold? Oh, well, if that's the case, maybe we need to own some of this. And by the way, there's a fixed supply of it. It's to me, it's still amazing we're not at higher numbers. I mean, what is it? 21 million coins, some of them are lost. Satoshi's got 1 million, whatever. 42 million. I mean, every millionaire in the world can't have one Bitcoin. So if you've got one Bitcoin, kind of by definition, you're a millionaire.
One of Lawrence Lepard's strongest cautions is that fiat money, particularly the US dollar, is headed for demise. Lepard contends that we are in the early phases of a global monetary catastrophe as central banks continue to monetize debt and government expenditure continues to spiral out of control. He considers Bitcoin and gold to be vital lifeboats in this situation, not merely alternatives. According to Lepard, gold has been a reliable store of value for thousands of years. However, he has an equal amount of enthusiasm for Bitcoin, which he considers to be digital gold with even greater potential for growth. Lepard believes that Bitcoin is the best defense against inflation and currency devaluation since it has a limited supply and is unaffected by central banks. Bitcoin provides a unique chance for people looking to safeguard their purchasing power to avoid the problems of a collapsing monetary system. If you're intrigued by bold predictions and deep financial insights, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more engaging content. Thank you for your support and enjoy the video.
At some stage, it's going to come to a head, right? And do you think that people are starting to wake up, or is it just us because we're stuck into like our echo chambers? But do you think the world is starting to wake up?
I think the world's starting to wake up, and I think the problem is that every intervention has to be larger and more intense. And so the next Fed balance sheet, the Fed balance sheet went from 900 billion in 2007 to climbed up to almost 3 or 4 in the low fours, 3 or 4 years later. And then of course it came back down a touch, and then it went up to 9, and now it's back down to 7. And I think the next big print, in my view, will take us to 20. 30 or 40, and the whole price level of everything will go up, and that's just math. It's just kind of built into the system, and we can't really stop it unless we decide to return to a sound money standard. There's going to be literally nobody who wants to own or hold debt in dollar terms. Everyone's going to migrate to something else, and the two possible something else's are Bitcoin and gold. And so yeah, maybe you'll hold your money in Bitcoin, maybe you'll transfer it into dollars to make a payment where they don't accept Bitcoin, but literally every $3 you have, you will put into these other currencies, which are not getting debased as the debasement gets worse and worse. And I think mathematically, the debasement has to get worse and worse. It's built into the system. So Bitcoin really is deflationary money, and its value should go up forever, as Michael Saylor points out, in terms of goods and services, because we're going to get better and better at producing goods and services, yet there'll only be a certain fixed number of Bitcoin. So, the beautiful thing about Bitcoin is it allows the average person to save in the form of a currency that will increase in value, not decrease in value. That's a big difference. It allows you to retire with comfort. It allows you to build wealth without having to take enormous risk. When the ETF got approved in January, February, that was an enormous step. Really, really, really enormous. And so that's allowed, everyday people to put some of their savings and their retirement in it. And it says that the government is recognized as a commodity, and they're not going to take it away from you, at least not now. Maybe Team Blue would. But the second thing that happens is just enormous. The strategic Bitcoin reserve, for the government to admit that this is a form of money that they think is strategically important vis-a-vis other countries. Well, now you're talking about nation state FOMO. So when they did that, that just sent a message to Russia, China, every other nation out there. Hang on a second. Is it possible that this will be the reset, that we'll reset to this and not gold? Oh, well, if that's the case, maybe we need to own some of this. And by the way, there's a fixed supply of it. It's to me, it's still amazing we're not at higher numbers. What is it? 21 million coins, some of them are lost. Satoshi's got 1 million, whatever. 42 million. Every millionaire in the world can't have one Bitcoin. So if you've got one Bitcoin, kind of by definition, you're a millionaire. It may only say $80,000 today, but you're a millionaire. As we reset. I kind of feel like Bitcoin is almost like God-given. It's like God looked down on the world and said, you guys are really screwed up. We're going to give you this tool that's going to allow you to break this knot.
Yeah.
these guys have got you in. And
Gordian knot. Yeah.
the Gordian knot. Yeah. And so now people can, basically opt out of that system. You don't have to own fiat. You can save in Bitcoin. And guess what? As it becomes more and more obvious that's the best way to save, more and more people are going to do it. Eventually, there's going to be almost no demand for fiat, or to the extent there's a demand for fiat, it'll be literally to make a transfer into fiat, take that transfer, and then buy something. And then the person you bought it from, they're going to get the fiat, and it's going to be a hot potato. They're going to go buy something else. We'll transfer it right back into Bitcoin or gold. So, because everyone knows that fiat is losing value every single day. I mean, in the Weimar example, in the last year of Weimar, they were marking up prices by the hour so that you might go out to dinner and, they'd say the price was going to be X. And by the time you finished, it was Y, it was more. That's kind of a extreme hyperinflation scenario, but it's not entirely off the table. They print money to excess. Eventually, the money will become worthless. We know that.
Lawrence Lepard thinks more people will begin calling for real changes to the way money is handled as the economy continues to deteriorate. According to him, new political leaders will emerge as a result of the public demand to restore sound money that appreciates in value over time. According to Lepard, gold and Bitcoin are the two greatest choices for a neutral reserve currency. History demonstrates that nations can recover quickly when they abandon breaking currencies and switch to a stable money system. Lepard cites post-war Germany and Ecuador as examples, both of which saw rapid economic recovery following their adoption of the US dollar. Although making the transition to sound money may provide short-term difficulties, the long-term benefits of growth, trust, and economic stability make it worthwhile. To remain up to date on the most recent developments in Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, and the digital economy, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and enable post notifications.
Now here we are, years and years later, and we're at a very, very extended place where debt to GDP is a very high number, relative historically, 125%. And, our deficits are large and growing. And in spite of what Doge is trying to do, we're not going to stop that train. One would say we're going to maybe slow it down a little, but not stop it. And so inflation is really, it's set to become the problem of our age, and we're going to have to address it. And as it gets painful enough, we will address it because people will be screaming bloody murder. And what will happen, I think, is some politicians will emerge who are credible, legitimate, Austrian economists and sound money advocates. And they will say, hey, we need to return to a neutral reserve currency. And the two choices are gold and Bitcoin. Maybe there's a hybrid of those two, but, and we'll go there. And by the way, after that, the world will be a lot better place. That's, the transition to there may not be pain-free because typically these monetary events create some wide price swings and winners and losers. No way to avoid that. If we wanted to avoid that, we never should have let the bubble form. But, in 2008, they went to 0% interest rates. They kept them there for 7 years. That's nuts. And then they did it again in 2019. And it could be a lot of different forms. It could be just high inflation until everybody screams and we get a reset. In a worst case scenario, it could be hyperinflation. If they don't react and print the money, it could be a depression. They had a similar levered bubble in 1929, and they printed money, but not enough, and not in the right ways. And they actually did a bunch of other things wrong, like the Smoot-Hawley tariffs. We had an enormous economic downturn that took a decade to recover from. So I think all of those possibilities are realistic. I think most likely, though, because Bernanke has painted the depression as as the boogeyman, and deflation is the boogeyman. I think when push comes to shove, as it did in 2008, when they said if we didn't give them TARP, the ATMs were going to stop working, they will print the money. And so when they print the money, we will have inflation. Now, is it going to be 10% inflation or 20% inflation or runaway hyperinflation? I don't know. It depends on who's in charge. Depends on what they do. If Team Blue wins and Andrew Yang puts in universal basic income and Stephanie Kelton is the Treasury Secretary, and we run enormous, right? Yeah, she is Mrs. MNP, and we run enormous deficits. Guess what? We got a chance of, hyperinflation. The currency just outright fails. That's definitely a possibility. I don't think it's a high probability, but it's not zero. So what I like to think of, what I hope occurs, is I hope that, things get worse. People become aware of the fact that things are getting worse. Politicians, people start to bitch and scream that we need to return to sound money. Politicians emerge would say, you know what? We got to rip this Band-Aid off. We've got this unsound monetary system. It's bad. we got to do a monetary reset, and that's going to have winners and losers. It's going to hurt. But the history shows that when you reset your currency to a sound money standard, things get really better. I mean, they really do quickly. I mean, it was, hyperinflation in Weimar Germany culminated in 1923. They went to a sound money standard afterwards, and the country recovered. Now, they're pretty brutal and beat up, and that's why they were susceptible to being charmed by Hitler, who blamed the unsound money on the Jews. But, Ecuador, for example, had hyperinflation. They went to a dollar standard, and everything got better fast. And so, there's a solution to this, but my view is it's better to just rip the Band-Aid off and do the reset, and to let it kind of fester and back and forth and up and down and constant inflation and 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I mean, it's like, let's just take the pain and go back to an honest system. That's what I believe is the right outcome or the right approach to take. Now, it's tricky because politicians won't do anything unless there's a lot of pain. And they're forced to.
According to Lawrence Lepard, we have come to the end of a long experiment with unsound money, and its consequences are getting harder to overlook. Lepard thinks we are on the verge of a tipping point because of the dangerously high debt to GDP ratios, the enormous and expanding deficits, and the central banks caught in a money printing cycle. Inflation is becoming the defining issue of our day, and is not just a temporary worry. The underlying system is essentially flawed, notwithstanding the efforts of policymakers to control it, and genuine political change will be compelled to take place when the agony of inflation becomes intolerable. According to Lepard, leaders with an Austrian economics perspective will arise and demand the reintroduction of a neutral reserve currency, something that governments cannot control. According to him, there are just 2 practical choices: Bitcoin, the contemporary digital substitute, and gold, the traditional store of value. He acknowledges the difficulties that lie ahead, including significant short-term suffering, significant price fluctuations, and obvious winners and losers when a monetary system is reset. Ultimately, Lepard's message is one of harsh reality mixed with genuine hope. Yes, there will be suffering. Volatility does exist. However, there is also the chance to establish a trustworthy, resilient, and sustainable financial system that encourages fairness, rewards saving, and brings long-term prosperity back. The future belongs to sound money, whether it be in the form of gold, Bitcoin, or a mix of the 2. The sooner we accept this, the better off we will be. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and enable notifications if you thought his viewpoint was helpful so you don't miss any updates. We'd love to know what you think about the future of cryptocurrency markets, so please share your ideas in the comments section. We appreciate your time and hope to see you in the next video.